Hello again. You're joining us on this edition of India Tonight, this Friday evening. Mark Zuckerberg, he says this is a year of efficiency. Yahoo says it will slash 20% of its workforce. Disney has slashed 7,000 jobs. That list is really too long to be read out, so we've put out the numbers on your screen. But tonight, dear viewers, we are keen to understand how deep that pain is. How long is it going to last? What's the way ahead? What happens to these tech workers who are being laid off? Because behind these numbers, we're talking about real people. We're talking about people with families, with great responsibilities. So at the same time, the question still also comes to mind. Why are these tech firms forced to slash all these jobs in such huge numbers? Are they chasing profitability? Are they doing it at the cost of their employees? Is it simply inevitable because the Fed decided to go on a rate hike spree, and this is the effect of that? To take on all these questions that are brewing in our heads about the incessant layoffs, let's discuss this with Aditya Narayan Mishra, Director and CEO at Ciel HR Services. Along with him, Anshuman is with us, the CEO of Careernet Consulting, and Omkar Tanksale is the Senior Research Analyst at Axis Securities. Gentlemen, great to have you with us. Aditya Mishra, not the greatest of times. Layoffs have been announced incessantly. Everyone seems to be pointing at the pandemic as the reason why these layoffs are happening. That a lot of hiring took place then, and growth levels now cannot sustain that strength of the workforce. I want to ask you how far that argument holds, because you look at certain companies like Apple. It hasn't resorted to mass layoffs like many of the other tech giants. Does it really mean that they were more efficient in their hiring during the pandemic, that these layoffs aren't as inevitable as some of the companies that are going ahead with the layoffs would have us believe?
No, I think there were many companies who overestimated the future, the potential of the future. They thought that the whole world has gone digital. Depending upon the business model that they brought out to the market, they felt that there is a huge transformation which is happening, and consumers will move to the digital way of consuming whatever they consume forever. So that was a significant reason they went on a hiring spree. And some of them were overzealous to sort of almost in a state of frenzy to hire in advance, because they thought that unless they hire at a certain speed, they will lose out to their peers or other competition. Quality of talent they will not be able to get. So I think that these two are significant reasons. Things have now changed after the pandemic. Consumer behaviors have changed significantly. And then to make matters worse, the economic environment in general has become globally has become tepid, and hence the consumer sentiment also has come down. So the spending pattern globally of consumers has come down as a result. Some of these tech companies are seeing the impact, that they are not seeing the kind of takeoff they anticipated in their revenues, and hence they have to now keep the runway little longer for them until they are able to raise some more capital. And the companies who are profitable, so for them, they are being a little cautious. So it is unfortunate, you are right, Vikram, that the people who are losing jobs and the kind of salary hikes that they had seen in 2021, even early part of 2022, so those salaries are not going to be very practical at this point in time.
Yes.
And hence, they need to change tack. They need to see that how they can deal with. I
Yes.
think there are 3-4 options before them.
Yes.
We can discuss a little later in
Yes,
the program.
absolutely. Anshuman Das, do come in on this. In terms of hiring patterns that you're seeing among different sectors, we are talking so much more about big tech and the kind of layoffs that we've seen in the tech universe. But between, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, what are the nuances that you've noticed in terms of hiring patterns? And perhaps I'm alluding to the main question tonight. Is this something that needed to be inevitable, or could we have circumvented this if we hadn't been perhaps not as optimistic about the flow of the digital world and the demands that it would create?
So Vikram, I think the storm is real and the storm is for everyone, but everybody boat is different. So it is all about that when the storm comes, how you tread your boat. So there are companies who essentially anticipated this, which is coming in, and there are a lot of companies who are not going through a whole firing what we are talking about. In fact, there are companies who are also hiring, not hiring to that frenzy mode. So I'm quite sure that there was a way and mechanics about companies being able to far more ready in terms of this is going to come. And if you actually see some of the sectors in India, like the edtech, gaming, crypto, some of these sectors have gone through a reasonable meltdown. And when you actually see what was going through in 21, it was essentially unprecedented. And I think what is happening right now was I think anybody's guess, and it was only a matter of time it has to happen. And there are a lot of companies who actually applied brakes in 2022, early part of hiring. And if you notice, they are the ones who are not firing. And there are companies who essentially miscalculated and really misjudged the whole situation. And they are the ones who are right now firing. So to that degree, I think this could have been managed better. Obviously, the whole situation has got aggravated with the overall geopolitical situation, which is also happening because of the overall inflation going about, the liquidity, which has really come out very heavily because of the COVID rollouts, which happened globally. So those things have also kind of added to the overall woes. So it is not about just one factor which has aggravated. And I do know in my customer base, there are a lot of companies who are managing it fairly well. And even when you look at the numbers which we are talking about, while a 5,000 or a 10,000 number is big from an Amazon or from a Microsoft point of view, but look at the size of these companies. These are like essentially massive corporations, which are essentially 2 lakh to 5 lakh people. So what we are talking about is broadly a single digit percentage which is there. And even now what is happening, all of this single digit percentage is happening at the same time. And that's why we believe that there is a lot of crisis going on. But if you look at any top performing company, every year they used to have a cleanup of 2-3% happening, just that the cycles were different. Now it's a time when all the cycles have coincided, and we believe that is a big number which is happening. So there is definitely that 2-3% cleanup which is happening. There is that 2-3% overhires which the companies have done. And probably, I think the way hiring process and a lot of the activities which were happening, I think it led to a lot of bad apples getting hired also. So net, the 5 to 10% cleanup is a very much needed one. And I would say the 5 to 10% cleanup should not be seen as an industry real slowdown kind of a thing. Anything beyond a double digit, I would
also bring in our other guest. Omkar Tanksale is also with us, talking about the sectoral variation that you see in terms of these layoffs and the kind of announcements that are made. Since you are from the financial universe, Omkar Tanksale, why don't you tell us how differently your sector is dealing with managing the workforce? Because it does come down to management, doesn't it? Because every company needs to have properly panned out their path to profitability. In difficult times, there are situations that every company, every sector faces. Some sectors, some companies manage to do it better. How is the financial universe tackling the current situation that it finds itself in?
Yeah, I mean, for as of now, we does not see any spend cuts or something like that in our sectors. The usage of the technology is being still robust in our case. Oh, I can see the things from the US part.
Techies in certain parts of the world are getting laid off.
I think there are 2-3 things which are happening. One is that there is a certain group of people who are quite realistic in their expectation of the job market. So they are willing to take a cut in the salary levels that they have been at, and they are getting into for example, a services company, because the kind of talent which some of these large product companies had recruited was really top class talent. And if they have been laid off, unfortunately, it is unfortunate for them because those projects got shut down. So those people are being, realistic in their expectation, taking on something else. So that is one set of people. The another set of people of course, are very anxious whether the axe is going to fall on them. So there is, of course, a lot of productivity issues because there is always this kind of a fear psychosis running around. So that's a bit of an issue which certain organizations are handling it very well. They are communicating very well with the employees. Employees are trying to get a realistic perspective of what to expect and what not.
Right.
So that's the second scenario. The third scenario, there are many of them which are looking at an alternate career.
Yes.
For example, some people are thinking of an entrepreneurial career. Though the startup ecosystem hasn't been in the best of shape compared to 2021, still there is money. There are companies which are getting funded. The Series A, the VC funding and Series B funding is still happening. So entrepreneurial approach is the third option people are taking.
Right.
And the fourth option that many of them are taking, like Omkar just now said,
Yes.
that there are pharma, engineering, financial services, chemical manufacturing, so many different sectors. They
Sure.
understand the value of digitization, automation happening.
Right.
And those companies are spending money on IT projects.
Right.
And
So
there
they are
is-
exploring other options beyond the ones that they have currently been in. But companies have to decide a certain way to really estimate the scale of layoffs. What's the process that they normally follow, just to understand from the company's point of view? Because it's something that would be top of mind when companies decide to lay off at such a large scale. What exactly makes them arrive at that decision that this is the kind of layoffs that they need? What's the process that they follow, Anshuman Das?
So typically, I think when any of these things happen, so there are a lot of projects which were planned for the 3-year, 2-year time frame, and they find companies that they are not the viable projects which are there. So I think those are the first ones which get hit. Then second are the projects which typically are the ones which have started, but let's say the focus has suddenly now become much more to become profitable than investment led. So projects which are essentially loss-making projects, that is the second focus which starts coming into. Third, then there is a in general cleanup which happens. Okay, are there the bottom 5% performers? Because even there will be a lot of good performers in the category 1 and category 2, and companies would want to accommodate them. And there will be a lot of reshuffle which will happen in terms of picking good people from 1 and 2 category and getting them to a third category and replace them internally. So that is how every company goes about it. And obviously the fourth factor which is prevailing in the overall startup ecosystem is the funding crunch, which is very high. And typically when the funding crunch happens, then you have to kind of look at the profitability, look at essentially ensuring that the projects which are loss making or the projects which are the 3-year further, those are the projects which companies will cut down, kind of a thing. In general, if you notice in India, I do not see the problem being very structural. The problem is much more cyclical. So I do believe that there will be a lot of these sectors which will start hiring, especially the IT services is right now have already applied brakes for the last 3 to 6 months, and it will continue for the next 3 to 6 months. But I do believe that they would start hiring. There is a lot of pent-up demand, which a lot of companies could not hire when the tech boom was going on.
Yes.
So those are also the companies which are hiring. So there is a definite mechanics where the talent is getting readjusted overall.
Fair enough. One only hopes that this is a passing phenomenon, that these layoffs that we've heard so incessantly, one after the other, every passing day, is going to stop now. And we are going to see hiring patterns kind of getting clearer and that much more robust in times to come. In India, for sure, that's the one big hope. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Aditya, Narayan, Mishra, Anshuman Das and Omkar Tanksale. Pleasure having your perspective on this edition of India Tonight.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, after a few